All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another week of conscious parenting, conscious parenting, conscious conversations in parenting, with me, Angie, and Julie. And we're going to be talking about today's episode 25. We're going to be talking about obligation energy, because we know that we all often feel this. I've had these conversations with people where we feel obligated to take certain actions or give energy to certain things that we don't necessarily want to do, right? And so we're going to look into that. And we called it obligation energy because it's an energy that we feel, right? And so let's talk about we were hoping to talk about what the source of that, where's the source of that energy coming from? This
Mhm.
obligation. Is it coming from people around you or is it coming from somewhere else?
Mhm.
So that's what we're going to dive into. That's just a little like sneak peek, I guess. My name's Angie. If you've never been here before, welcome. I'm glad you found this conversation. And what do I want to tell you about me? I created Journey to Soul. That's my business, which is ever evolving, always changing. Oh, I'm still figuring it out. It's really who I am because that's what I'm doing with me, is always understanding myself and getting deeper and deeper into the levels of our multidimensional nature, right? And as we awaken, we discover these layers and layers about ourselves, and conscious conversations has always been a part of my journey, my whole growth, even from a young age. And so that's what I love about doing these conscious conversations because I don't know about you, but I need them as a parent. I need to be able to get reflections from other parents, of my situation, the experiences I'm having, and of different perspectives, because I'm just somebody that doesn't believe what they tell you, you know? And so I often seek it by having conscious conversations for other ways. There's got to be another way I can do this because this doesn't feel good. And I think a lot of people are there too. So I'll let Julie introduce herself. I'm a mom too, obviously.
Hello, everyone. I'm Julie, and if you don't know me, I am a loving being who just really devotes myself to learning how to love myself even more so that I can be a better example to my children. That was the drive in me learning to love and care for myself because I realized I was not loving and caring for my children the way I wanted to. And I realized to be able to do that, I had to first learn how to care for myself because we only have the capacity to love and care for others as much as we can love and care for ourselves. So I love having these conscious conversations as well. Gives me new insights and reminds me of, old tools and skills that I've used, and oftentimes helps me in the present moment with challenges I may be having. Um, yeah, so these are beautiful conversations. I love learning and sharing from my own experience.
Yeah, thank you. And that's true. I love that you said that because if you find yourself at this video, whenever you find yourself at this video, I guarantee it's timed perfectly for whatever's going on in your life because that's what we find too, right? As we have these conversations, and Natalie is often with us, and as we have these conversations, it parallels with what's going on in our lives. So these
Absolutely.
topics come to us that way. But
Yes.
yeah, let's talk about obligation energy.
So this one, yeah,
Mhm.
in my life right now, obligation is something I've been remembering and learning and practicing how to let go of, because obligation energy does not feel good to me. Um, when I think of it, I feel the only obligation I want to have is to be obligated to love myself, um, and to care for myself. Um, when I think of obligation energy, it reminds me of doing things not because I want to do them, but because someone has an expectation of me, or more often, I believe they have an expectation of me. So I am doing these actions and fulfilling this obligation. And a lot of times I realize if I stop doing that, they never had that obligation of me in the first place. But it can be definitely a very heavy and frustrating feeling for me to be living my life through the obligations of others. That doesn't give me the time to find out what I desire, what I want to do, or to practice what I want to do. I may know I don't want to be doing this. I would rather be doing something else, but I feel obligated to do it. So I'm going to continue doing it. But when we can release those obligations and let go of them, we can do what we choose and then become more aligned, more grounded, more loving to ourselves and those around us, because we also will project that energy on those we believe we feel obligated to, right?
Yeah, yeah, like because we think, like you made such a really great point. Like we believe that they have this expectation of us. So I want you to think about that, guys. Like we think they have an expectation of us, even if they might not have an expectation of us, but we think they do. So we're reacting, our emotions are reacting to this thought that we think they expect us to do. So if it's something you don't want to do, what's going to happen is you're going to build up resistance and you're going to build up resentment. And if you're feeling that, and there's someone to blame because you have a thought that they have an expectation of you. And that's where you're going to project it. And
Right,
now
because we're
you do
pointing the finger.
yeah, and so we create the suffering. We've created there's this thought that they have an expectation of us, and I love that you said that oftentimes when we let go of it, and this has been the truth of my experience, and I know it's been the truth of your experience, that when we let go of obligation, we'll find that that person didn't have any expectation of us.
Right. And as you said that, something I find as well is that life becomes more peaceful, but it seems that when I am doing what I want to do, not because I feel obligated to do it, it's beneficial not only for myself, but all those around me. I'm no longer holding that resentment. I often have the capacity to do a lot more. And I end up doing things like, even if those actions that I felt obligated to do before, I will do them in love, and I will do them where I have so much more space and time and freedom, not feeling like I need to fit in this box of obligation.
Then it's not even obligation energy anymore, because
No,
once you've shifted it into love, now you're just in service.
yes, yes, and you're doing it out of love. It's such a different. We can be doing the exact same actions,
Yeah.
but when we've shifted, just our perception or our intention behind that. So our perception that we're obligated to do this, we shift it to, I'm not obligated to do anything. the the way I feel is I'm not obligated to do anything but to love myself and cause no harm.
Yeah.
Those are my two core values, beliefs, and how I go about my life. But if I start feeling obligated that I need to do this for that person and this for that person, I become resentful, I become frustrated, my energy becomes depleted, and I don't have the capacity for myself or others. It's a huge difference. And when you were just speaking before, it made me think of healthy expectations as well and obligations. So for me, that would be if we've spoken about something and communicated about something, to be like, okay, can you or will you do so and so? And the other person says yes, or we say yes to the other person. I feel like that's an obligation, right? There's our obligation. But we still have personal power in that because we have the choice to say no or say yes. But we have to be aware of ourselves and choose for ourselves what we need in that moment. Yes, I am able to do this, or no, I do not have the capacity to do that. And sometimes often we
We'll say
have challenge
yes.
saying no.
Yes, so we'll say yes.
Yes.
And we have to take ownership of that.
Mhm.
This is what being conscious is about, right? It's that you recognize, oh, I shouldn't have said yes. Because the truth is I didn't want to do it. I felt obligated to say yes. Right? And so we need to take ownership when we recognize that if we want to reduce the suffering, create peace, and
Mhm.
you know what I mean, and release this energy, right? Um, so that we can release this energy or transmute it into being of service, right? We must see that and we can change our mind. You know, we can
Yes.
change our mind and we can say to a person, I'm really sorry. I know I said yes and I shouldn't have done that. But the truth is, I don't have the capacity to do that.
Absolutely. I think that's a big step on a self-loving journey to
Yes.
learn to say no with love. You know, we
Yeah,
don't have to say it in a mean and harsh
yeah.
way. And it oftentimes feels very challenging, especially for women and mothers who are used to giving, are programmed to give selflessly and always put everyone else first and before them, and not take time for ourselves. It can be challenging to learn to say no.
Yeah.
um, my personal experience actually learning to say no was when Stephen was born, because before that I was very much a people pleaser and wanted to make people happy and wanted to make people like me. When Stephen was born, I was empowered to say no, because now my child came first before everything. And then when I realized I was losing capacity for love and care of my children, I realized, oh, wait, I need to be the one who comes first and foremost before everything.
Mm,
And saying no is definitely a huge part of that. Um, and we can do it, like I said, we can do it in a loving way. And I'm reminded of earlier on my journey as I started to say no or let people know that I may not always have the capacity to give. Um, I would oftentimes say, I will if I can. I don't know how I'm going to feel each day because I was not used to processing my emotions in a healthy way. I had a lot of stuff that I had pushed aside for a long time that I was learning to sit with and feel and release and understand. So
mm.
any given day could be an up or down for me. I didn't know what capacity I would have. And that was part of really learning how to say no, or just let people know that I will if I can, only if I have the capacity, rather than constantly feeling obligated to do
Yeah.
something.
And that's
Mhm.
honoring yourself where you're at.
Yes.
That's really knowing yourself. It's really knowing that, it changes from moment to moment. That's a big awareness to have about ourselves too.
It was a
We
huge
change
game
moment to
changer.
moment.
Yes. It was definitely a huge game changer in being able to care for myself and then in turn my family, not to be constantly depleting myself um, for others' sake. you know,
Yeah.
I had to let people know that if I had the capacity, I will gratefully do it. If
Yeah.
not, then I will not be able to do it.
Yeah, and this can be hard. I know this can be hard in households sometimes. Especially, I mean, I feel like so many women I speak to, period, women tend to have that people pleasing
Mhm.
trait, right? Programming, I'll call it.
Yeah. Yeah.
People pleasing programming. And it's very hard when you are in a family unit and you've been a people pleaser to shift out of that.
Yes.
It can be really challenging, and so I just want people who are listening, we we honor that about it. It's hard. It is hard. We know that, right? And it can be really hard, but when can you look at it energetically? I'm thinking of examples where people have I've been on the receiving end of people fulfilling obligations to me, but I was never asking for it. I've often had this experience where people do things for me all the time and do extra things that I'm almost like, it's not necessary. That's what I say, you know? Like that's really not necessary. Like I'm okay to do this. You know what I mean? And
Right.
I've felt uncomfortable because and now I'm realizing this as you were talking. Like I'm realizing like, oh, I felt uncomfortable because this was a projection of someone else's creation of an expectation that I might have of them. And I used to often feel like it was necessary for me to say to them like, "No, it's okay. Like I don't need you to do that, you know? Like that's not
That's
necessary."
that's interesting. It's bringing up for me, me and you, and
Mhm.
always feeling like I need to drive you home.
That
And
was
you
the
would always,
example that's the example I
yes,
thought of while you were
right.
talking.
Yes, and that's what I just thought of while you were talking. I'm like, I just felt like I should, or,
Yeah.
I have a vehicle, I can do it. It would take me a short period of time, but it would take you a long time to travel, whether you're walking or
Yeah.
busing it or, and I remember the one time at Mystic Mojo when I couldn't do it and I felt so horrible when you
Right.
had to take the bus. But this was not an obligation you had of me. This
At
was an
no
obligation
point.
I had of myself. And I knew that. And I
Yes.
knew that, but I still carried that and held that I have that obligation. And eventually, I feel like in the last while, I haven't felt that obligation anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
I do it when I can, and then if I can't, I can't.
Yeah, and
Right?
I ask
Exactly.
if it's possible, and I don't feel bad to ask because she'll say
Right.
no if she can't do it. And
Exactly.
it's but here's what I was thinking as you're talking about, I can't believe you brought up the exact same example I was thinking of. Well, I mean, I can believe
Yeah.
it because
Of
it's
course.
us. But but it was funny that you brought it up because what I was thinking was like the gifts that I've had in it. So here's what we do. When we project these expectations onto other people, right, and then we people please and we do these obligations that are made up, right, and we action on these obligations, we deny the other person opportunities. And so when I think about the time, so many people have driven me, okay, because I don't drive, right? And so a lot of people feel obligated to drive me. And I often tell them, like, it's fine. I don't need the drive. Like, I'm okay. And I think I've told you that several times. Like,
Oh,
I'm
yes,
okay.
many
Like, that's
times.
fine,
Yeah.
right? Like, I'm really fine. And I truly am, though. You need to trust people when they say that, because what would happen is I would have such a great night with Julie and then I would go and take the bus and I would get fresh air and I would feel good. Like it would be a great experience. I'd see the moon. You know what I mean? Like I would end up having this really great experience. And would there be a moment that I'd be like, oh, this sucks. I have to take the bus. Yeah, but it has nothing to do with Julie that I'm thinking that. You know what I mean? And it's like, but then I get out there and I have a really great time and I
Yeah.
really enjoy myself and I really, I just like so we deny people like I'm hoping what I think I'm trying to get across to people is like, do you understand that you sometimes are stifling opportunities for other people when we do this, when we follow through on this obligation energy?
Right. It kind of reminds me of the enabling,
Yes.
like we're when we're enabling something, we're stifling them. Again, if we're doing these obligations that they oftentimes don't even have, again, we're stifling not only them and our own experiences, but our relationship as well. And
Yeah.
the dynamic and the energy between it. You know, when I started realizing, I was like, when I started feeling like, oh, I don't want to have to drive you this time because I want to do this or that, and I wanted that
Yeah.
time, it was like, and realizing, well, you don't expect me to. If I wasn't here, you wouldn't be driving. You know what I mean? Like playing it out in
Yes.
my head, like it's not like she expects me to, or she's going to be upset at me if I don't, or,
Yeah.
she often takes the bus and walks and does whatever. And I'd hear so many
Exactly.
times about your wonderful experiences going home or coming to when you were walking. It opened up a completely new dynamic and
Yeah.
um, for both of us. right?
Yeah. And then
For
you
me not
get,
to be holding on to this unnecessarily obligation that you never had of me.
yeah. And if I wanted to go home faster, I would call a cab.
Yeah.
And I never felt any resentment that you wouldn't do it. And that's what I was actually, so as you were talking, I was feeling deep gratitude and deep appreciation for that you did that,
Mm,
because most people would drive me. And it was uncomfortable, to be honest, for me. I didn't
yeah.
actually think it was necessary, so it felt almost like it didn't feel authentic.
Right. You can feel the energy. You
Yeah,
can feel the different energy.
yeah,
So absolutely. So when that started to occur, because I did it, at first just to be nice. I
yeah,
wasn't doing it out of obligation or I thought that you
yes,
expected it of me, kind of, but maybe in the back of my mind, maybe there was somewhere that was saying that,
yeah,
this is an expectation. You have a vehicle, it's easy for you, just do it.
yeah,
Right.
yeah,
But then if there was some times where I felt obligated to do it, the energy and dynamic would be completely different. And
yeah,
I'm not saying that I can pinpoint a time or, anything like that. But
yeah,
when I started to recognize that feeling, that's when I chose to change it. I was
yeah.
empowered to then change that, and wonderful
And then you
experiences. And
discover it's fine.
exactly. And exactly. It was just beautiful. So
Yeah. And it's such a gift. And so, yeah, that's, do we see like we're literally just creating it? We're creating expectations from other people. And why do you think we do that? Why do you think we do that?
I think it has to do with people pleasing. Like we're just trying to please the people around us. You want to make them happy. Um, but I think, and that's a wonderful thing, there's nothing wrong with that. It's when it starts depleting us is
Yes.
when there's a challenge that we need to make a change, when it doesn't feel good any longer,
Yeah.
when it feels frustrating, when it feels like we just want to finish this or we just want to get through this and be done. We'd
Yeah.
rather be doing something else. Those are the times when we have to realize that what we're doing is not loving for ourselves. And in turn, it's not loving for the other person either.
That's right.
And we
That's
have a
right.
choice.
That's why I truly believe, like through this conversation, I believe the opposite of obligation energy is it being in service. Because when we're in service, it's intentional, it's loving, it's, you know what I mean? Obligation, people pleasing is, and I believe people pleasing is a coping technique for a lot of people who have experienced trauma, which most
Oh,
humans
yes.
have, you know,
Yes,
and it's part
absolutely.
of keeping us safe, right?
Mm-hmm.
To people please. And so it's really valuable to recognize this pattern and to recognize the tie between obligation and expectation, and that we're
Right.
creating that expectation. And so I guess the invitation would be to notice where you're doing something that doesn't feel good, that you don't actually want to be doing.
Mm.
And can you explore it and see if you have a belief or a thought that this person has an expectation of you, or a situation has an expectation of you within your household. Start within your household, right?
And can you choose not to do it any longer, even once or twice, and
Yes.
be able
And
to
observe.
sit with how that feels and be able to be aware of the experience that comes because of it.
Yeah.
Um,
And
Another
observe,
thing,
do they
oh,
actually have an expectation of you?
right, right. Another example of this in my life is doing Steve's laundry. I got to a point where I was like, I don't want to do this anymore,
Mm.
and I'm sure he expected it of me because I was doing it for a long time. But what happened um, when I stopped doing his laundry, he started doing his laundry and it freed up time for me. And when I was ready to do it again, after months or years, it was a long time, probably years. I did it, as you said, out of service and out of gratitude, because I had the time and the space, and because I wanted to show him appreciation because he works hard and he supports us, and it's nice to have nice, clean, folded clothes. And I get appreciation for that now. He thanks me for it and he makes comments about it now. Whereas before it was expected of me because I held that obligation myself, and I did it for so long, and then it becomes an expectation of his that, oh, she's just going to do this. But it completely changed the dynamic and the energy and the communication, and
beautiful,
and I feel gratitude for it now. I get gratitude for it now, whereas in that obligation energy I never did or would have.
We've had this conversation lots, and I totally resonate with that myself in my own experiences here. And it's shifting the energy. And when you shift it, because when you're doing it out of resentment and obligation, they feel it. So you're going to get a different feedback from that person.
Oh, yes.
So like you said, you got no feedback. You didn't get any appreciation, just expectation, right? And when you switch it, when you shift it, it shifts their energy. Yeah. This is how powerful we are, guys. This is how powerful we are. We can shift energy, right? And watch and witness how that unfolds in your experience. And that's the invitation, is to witness it. Allow yourself to see it, allow yourself, and be gentle with yourself, be kind with yourself. Always.
Yes. And I realize it's about 4 minutes till our premiere.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
We should wrap this up.
We should wrap this video up.
But
thank you everybody for joining in and finding us here. And if you do like the video, please like our video, share it with another mother. I know a lot of people go through this obligation, and share your own experiences and insights and wisdom with us. And if you want to learn more about us or connect with us in other spaces, our links are below in the information box. All right. I love you. Love you.
Love you too. Love you all. Have a beautiful night or day wherever you are.
Yes. Thank you.